My name is Naomi Blake. I was 31 years old, working as an intake coordinator at a pediatric clinic in Minneapolis, when I found out I apparently owned a house I had never seen and was 3 months behind on a mortgage I never signed. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon that felt painfully ordinary. Flu season was tapering off. The waiting room was quieter than usual. I was at my desk reconciling intake forms, correcting insurance codes, and answering the steady rhythm of parent questions about fevers, rashes, and school notes. My life was predictable in a way I'd worked very hard for. Predictable meant safe. My phone buzzed against my desk, an unfamiliar local number. I almost ignored it. I usually did. But something tugged at me. Maybe it was the fact that I'd been expecting a call back about refinancing my student loans. Maybe it was instinct. I stepped into the hallway near the supply closet and answered. "Miss Blake? This is Nathan from North Lakes Credit Union. I'm calling regarding your past due mortgage on the Highland property. You're currently 3 months delinquent." There was a pause, the kind where your brain refuses to process what it just heard. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "What mortgage?" He repeated the balance. $623,000. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my brain couldn't compute the number. I made $52,000 a year before taxes. I rented a one-bedroom apartment near Hennepin Avenue with thin walls and a radiator that clanged all winter. I packed my lunches. I compared grocery prices down to the ounce. There was no universe in which I qualified for a $623,000 mortgage. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice thinning. "I don't own property." "I have your name, date of birth, and social security number on file," Nathan replied gently. "The property address is Highland Avenue." Highland Avenue. That's when something inside me went cold. My sister Alyssa and her husband Gavin had moved into a craftsman home on Highland 3 months ago. She'd posted photos nonstop. The exposed beams, the built-in bookshelves, the backyard garden. She called it our dream. I'd been there once. We ate moose cake on the patio. Gavin gave a toast about hard work paying off. Alyssa squeezed my hand and said, "You'll get here too, Nay. Just keep grinding." My body felt like it was folding in on itself. "I need to call you back," I whispered. I ended the call and walked, slowly, carefully, into the staff restroom. I locked the door. I stared at myself in the mirror. Same brown hair pulled into a low bun. Same soft eyes. Same woman who had spent years rebuilding her credit after one stupid mistake in her early 20s. I opened my banking app. Nothing unusual. Then I pulled up my credit monitoring service. It took less than 10 seconds for my life to split in half. There it was. Mortgage account, North Lakes Credit Union. Opened 3 months ago. Original balance, $623,000. Status, 90 days past due. My mailing address listed as the Highland property. I stopped breathing. It wasn't a scam. It was real. Someone had used my name, my social security number, my entire financial identity. And they hadn't just opened a credit card, they had taken out a mortgage. I didn't cry. Shock is strange like that. It keeps you functional. I splashed water on my face, walked back to my desk, finished my shift, smiled at parents, scheduled follow-ups, sent reminder texts. I don't remember driving home. I do remember sitting in my parked car outside my apartment for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel, trying to make it make sense. There were only a handful of people who knew my social security number. My parents, my sister, my ex-boyfriend from years ago, but he was long gone. And Alyssa. She'd once helped me fill out financial aid paperwork when we were in college. She'd teased me for never memorizing my number. My stomach twisted. No, not her. But Highland Avenue, the timeline. 3 months ago. That's when they moved in. That's when the mortgage opened. I went upstairs, shut the door, and called the credit union back. Nathan transferred me to fraud services. I answered verification questions I knew by heart. Mother's maiden name, first car, high school mascot. Then the woman on the line said, "Miss Blake, We have a copy of the signed mortgage documents on file. Can you send them to me? I asked. She hesitated. I can email you a secure link. 10 minutes later, I opened the PDF. My name typed neatly on every page, my signature at the bottom. It looked almost perfect. Almost. But I know my signature. There's a slight hook on the B in Blake, a tiny upward flick at the end. This one was careful, slower, like someone copying from memory. My hands began to shake. Attached to the application were pay stubs, falsified ones, listing an income of $148,000 a year. Employer, Private Pediatric Health Consultants, a company that didn't exist. They had built an entirely fake version of my life. The down payment listed? Gifted funds. From an account I didn't recognize. But the routing number? It belonged to a bank Alyssa used. I felt nauseous. I dialed her number. She answered on the third ring. Hey, Nay, what's up? I was just about to send you pictures of the new dining table. I swallowed hard. Alyssa, whose name is on your house? There was a pause, a tiny one. Ours? Mine and Gavin's. Why? I just got a call from North Lakes Credit Union, I said carefully, about a mortgage on Highland Avenue, in my name. Silence. Longer this time. Then she laughed. That's impossible. Is it? My voice was steady in a way I didn't recognize. You must be getting scammed. There are so many fraud calls lately. I pulled my credit report, I said. It's real. Her tone shifted, subtle, defensive. Well, we used a broker. Maybe there's some clerical overlap? You know how paperwork gets messy. Clerical overlap. For a $623,000 mortgage. With my social security number? I asked. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, Naomi, you're overreacting. Let's not jump to accusations. Accusations. My reflection from earlier flashed in my mind. The woman in the mirror who had worked for years to rebuild her credit after co-signing a car loan for a college roommate who defaulted. I had learned boundaries the hard way. I'm not accusing, I said quietly. I'm asking. Did you use my information? Her exhale was sharp. Gavin said we'd fix it before it ever affected you. The world narrowed. You did. It was temporary, she snapped. The bank wouldn't approve us because Gavin's business had a bad quarter. We needed a clean applicant. You have perfect payment history. My knees buckled. I slid down the wall onto my kitchen floor. You forged my signature, I whispered. It's not like that, she insisted. We're family, and we were going to refinance in a year and transfer it. You wouldn't even notice. I'm 3 months delinquent, I said. That's just a cash flow hiccup. We're handling it. Handling it. With my credit. With my future, I said, my voice finally breaking. You're not even trying to buy a house, she said. This doesn't hurt you right now. That sentence changed everything, because it told me she'd calculated it. She'd weighed my life against hers and decided mine was more expendable. You committed identity theft, I said. It's not theft if it's family, she shot back. I ended the call. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember walking to my bedroom. I just remember sitting on my bed in the dark as night fell, replaying every memory of us growing up. Alyssa had always been the golden one, confident, outgoing, the first to get engaged, the first to buy a house. I had always been the careful one, the backup plan, the practical sister. And somehow, in her mind, that meant my identity was collateral. I didn't sleep. At 7 a.m., I called a lawyer. By noon, I had filed a police report. By 3 p.m., fraud investigators from the credit union were requesting handwriting samples. And by 6 p.m., my mother was calling, hysterical. How could you do this to your sister? She cried. The words felt surreal. How could I? She said you're threatening legal action over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I repeated. Mom, they forged my signature on a $623,000 mortgage. There was a pause. Well, you're not using your credit for anything important right now. There it was again. My life as placeholder, my stability as resource. That night, something inside me hardened, not out of revenge, out of survival. Because if I didn't protect myself, no one else would. The next morning, I froze every line of credit I had. I filed affidavits. I sent certified letters. I documented every call. Gavin left me a voicemail. Let's not blow this up. We can fix it privately. Privately meant quietly. Quietly meant no consequences. But consequences were already here. For me. My credit score had dropped 112 points. My landlord emailed asking why my background check flagged a delinquent mortgage when my lease renewal came up. The damage was real, and so was my resolve. 3 days later, a detective called me in to review documentation. When I walked into that station, I wasn't shaking anymore. I was steady. Because I understood something now. They didn't just take out a mortgage in my name. They made a decision about my worth. And I was done letting anyone, even family, decide that for me. That was the moment everything shifted. And it was only the beginning. The detective didn't look surprised. That's what unsettled me most. He flipped through the mortgage documents, the falsified pay stubs, the forged signature, and said calmly, "This happens more than people think. Most victims just don't expect it to come from family." I swallowed. What happens next? We investigate. If the evidence supports it, the case goes to the county attorney. Identity theft over $35,000 is a felony in Minnesota. A mortgage of this size... He paused. It's serious. Serious. That word echoed differently now. Because for 3 days, everyone in my family had treated this like a dramatic overreaction. Like I was threatening Thanksgiving over paperwork. But this wasn't paperwork. It was federal fraud. It was my social security number tied to a foreclosure risk. It was years of rebuilding my credit, erased. The investigation moved faster than I expected. North Lakes Credit Union had security camera footage from the day the closing documents were signed. The loan officer remembered Alyssa clearly. She'd come in alone the first time, asking questions about co-borrower structure. A week later, she and Gavin returned with a notary. The signature on the final page didn't match my driver's license sample. The IP address used to upload supporting documents traced back to Gavin's home office. They weren't careful. They were confident. Confident I wouldn't fight. The first real crack came when the bank demanded immediate payment of the delinquent balance or formal fraud adjudication. Alyssa called me that night, crying. "You're ruining everything," she sobbed. "If they reverse the mortgage, we lose the house." "You never had the house," I said quietly. "You had my name." "You could have just let us catch up," she snapped. "We were close to landing a big client." I let the silence sit. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" Another silence. "That's not the point." It was exactly the point. 2 weeks later, fraud investigators officially removed the mortgage from my credit file pending prosecution. My score rebounded. The relief was physical, like oxygen filling my lungs after being underwater. But the family fallout was brutal. My mother stopped answering my calls. My dad sent a text that said, "Family handles things privately." My aunt posted vague Facebook quotes about loyalty and betrayal. And then the formal charges were filed. Identity theft, mortgage fraud, forgery. Gavin tried to negotiate. His attorney reached out, offering a family resolution agreement. If I signed an affidavit stating I'd given informal consent and that this was a misunderstanding, they would refinance immediately and make it right. Make it right. As if trust could be refinanced. As if my name was a temporary inconvenience. I declined. The house on Highland Avenue went into foreclosure 3 months later. I didn't drive by. I didn't want to see it. But I heard about it. Neighbors whispering, social media going quiet, the carefully curated photos disappearing. Alyssa and Gavin moved into a rental across town. The court process dragged on for nearly a year. I testified once. Seeing her across the courtroom was surreal. She looked smaller, not evil, not monstrous, just someone who had convinced herself she was entitled. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Gavin received probation and restitution requirements. Alyssa, as the primary applicant and forger, received a suspended sentence contingent on repayment and financial monitoring. No jail time. Some people thought that meant I lost, but they didn't understand something important. This was never about revenge. It was about record. It was about making sure my name was legally cleared. It was about boundaries drawn in ink instead of tears. The restitution payments started slowly. Court-ordered deductions from their wages. I didn't need the money. What I needed was acknowledgement. That came in the form of a required written statement of admission filed with the court. In it, Alyssa wrote, "I used my sister's personal information without her knowledge or consent to secure a mortgage loan. I understand that this was a violation of her trust and the law." I read that sentence 3 times, not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first time she had told the truth without blaming me. Life didn't go back to normal. Family dinners stopped. Holidays became quiet. But something unexpected happened. 6 months after the case closed, I applied for a first-time homebuyer program. I hadn't been planning to. For years, I'd told myself I couldn't afford it. But I ran the numbers. My credit was strong again, my savings steady, and this time, when I sat across from a loan officer, it was my real income, my real job, my real signature. I qualified for a modest 2-bedroom townhome in northeast Minneapolis. Nothing flashy, no exposed beams, no curated Instagram patio. But when I signed those papers, my hand didn't shake, because this mortgage had my name on it, and only mine. On moving day, I stood in the empty living room with a folding chair and a cup of takeout coffee. The walls were plain, the floors scratched in places. It was perfect. Not because it was big, but because it was honest. Alyssa tried reaching out once after sentencing. A long text about therapy, regret, pressure, how Gavin had pushed the plan, how she panicked when business slowed. I didn't respond right away. When I finally did, it was simple. "I hope you get the help you need, but I will never be collateral again." We haven't spoken since. People still ask if I regret pressing charges, if I miss my sister. The truth is complicated. I miss who I thought she was. I miss the version of us that baked cookies at midnight and whispered about our futures. But that version didn't forge my signature. That version didn't watch my credit collapse and call it temporary. Sometimes protecting yourself means becoming the villain in someone else's story. I've made peace with that, because when I look in the mirror now, I see something different than I did that Wednesday afternoon in the clinic restroom. I see a woman who chose herself, and that choice, more than any house on Highland Avenue, is what secured my future.